The first book I ever published, I actually have it here, was a version of Superhero: The Beginning. And this book was, I did it in October 2021. It was my first comic. And the version I did, the first one, nobody wanted it. So I had to rework it. And then the stores wanted it, but nobody bought it. And so I had to rework it. And then this was the first one that sold an actual copy in a bookstore. And then this set me on the path to do a monthly book. And then in 2022, January is when I really started doing the monthly.
When you talk about like reworking it, did you just redraw the whole book?
Well, I had to think about storytelling because the first one I did, I thought of starting the story from the beginning and then doing a linear thing, and I hated that process. And then I was watching Smallville, actually, and I realized that every time they start an episode, it starts in the middle, and then it like circles back or whatever. So I figured, why don't I telling a story linearly? Let me just start in the middle and see what happens. And so when I did that, it kind of unlocked everything, and I was able to free the storytelling to be like, you can start anywhere, it doesn't matter. And that's how the whole concept came of just like, this book takes place in 1986, the next book is 1952, because nothing matters. We could just pick and choose what we want, you know? So that's how that came about. Yeah.
Where are your inspirations coming from?
Well, I grew up reading European comics, bande dessinées like Asterix and Obelix, I'm using the accent, Lucky Luke, you know, all these things. And in my mind, I didn't really see comics as comics. They were just still movies. I didn't have the concept of comic book in my head. It was just these amazing pictures that would move in my head. And so I didn't really, I didn't have a notion of what a comic book was. It was more stories on a page that are moving in my head, and now I can draw them, you know, all these things, yeah. That's kind of that was my growing up reading comics.
All right, so what are your top 3 movies then?
Top 3 movies, I actually talked about this recently. Curious Case of Benjamin Button. That's one of them. I'll give you my top 5. Darjeeling Limited.
Okay.
Love that one. Serendipity with John Cusack. Yeah, love it. Moonstruck. Yeah, Cher. That was good. And then it's a tie with Twins and Coming to America. Those are my.
It's a wild list.
I gave you nothing to work with, but
no, you gave me a lot to work with.
It's an insight.
It's crazy. Where you're coming from is different than most traditional
sure
comic book guys.
Sure.
You know, your journey is different.
Right.
And can you talk about why you chose comic books as a medium?
Yeah, I mean,
to tell stories.
So I don't know if people know, I was a musician before. And so for me, my style of songwriting was very, it was narrative. I didn't have a lot of choruses in it. Surprise, surprise, why I didn't make it, you know, but it was just it was long stories, almost like Bob Dylan. It was long stories, it was long, paint pictures with words, basically. And then when COVID happened and all the gigs went away, I had no venue to really do that. And again, it was when I was watching Smallville, I thought to myself, fuck, I liked comics, right? I liked superheroes. I love mythology. Why don't I do it? And it just came about. It was one random night. I went up and I hadn't drawn in a while, and I sketched the main character Z. And I was like, I'll call it Superhero. Throwaway thing that ended up becoming the whole identity of this whole company. So it was really just a random moment. Yeah. And then I just fell in love with the medium, and I started diving deep into it. Cartoonist Kayfabe was like an encyclopedia well that I would go in all the time. And it was just, I uncovered this world that was way too fascinating to ever give it up. So I just kind of dove in that way.
At Indie Comics Creator Con, I've asked this question to a lot of creators beforehand, when they've launched a #1 book.
Sure.
I'll ask them, hey, what is it gonna feel like, or what is your emotional state gonna be when somebody cosplays as one of your original characters?
Okay.
And somebody did that.
Yeah.
So
I'm still recovering from it. First of all, Indie Comics Creator Con, I have to say for you, is one of the greatest cons. What is it I told you when I walked in that I felt like it was how I imagined the first San Diego to feel like? It was all these up and comers, all these new artists, all these people, and it really felt like we were just starting something, which is exactly the spirit of all these books. It's just like to start something, start a small fire, and the feeling was just, you could feel it throughout the whole room. So IndieCon is CreatorCon to the camera. I approve this message. But to see someone someone made my character has a helmet, Hiroshi, and this amazing, talented guy, Trevor, he came up to my table and gave me that helmet, and he wore it, and then he even sent me. I think he's even here. He did the whole costume, and I can retire, is what I'm trying to say. It's like my career peaked way too quick, so it's downhill from here. But I mean, I'm speechless from it. You can't put into words what that feels like, because it's an idea you had that from nothing, that you put on paper, almost to keep yourself entertained. It's just, there's no way that can inspire someone to do that, but it did, and so it's crazy. It's fascinating.
Then today, you did a panel with Howard Chaykin.
Yeah.
And the energy that he brings to a panel is bonkers. It's bonkers.
I mean, yeah.
So, like, talk to me about what that panel felt like, to you, and like what was going through your mind as he was rambling.
I mean, the man has lived, right? And he has a lot of stories to tell. And me being a humble youngin in the game, I'm gonna respect my elders, of course. And I have so much to learn from them too. So I was like, let me just listen and see where this is going. Like what happened to him to make him speak this way of this industry? Because I've had zero of those experiences. And so when he was being a little pessimistic or bitter, as he said, it made me think of my own journey and all the other, like, my contemporaries that are similar to me. And it made me realize that the game has changed and that it's not at all that anymore. And there are a lot of notions that he would talk about that just don't apply to people who do it independently. And I think we did manage to find a silver lining at the end of it where, I think he had his pessimistic side, I had my optimistic side, and I think we figured out that that's where the new school and the old school meet, is that we can all learn from each other, because I've learned so much from him, and I think, maybe this is too much to say, but he might learn something from the way we do things, And I mean, just to be part of that panel, if I just sat there and not said anything for 40 minutes, it would have been fine by me, because he's sitting next to Howard Chaykin, and he's saying my name and talking about my work, validation, please, yes, thank you. It's crazy, it's fascinating.
Where can people find your work?
So superherocomics.com is my website, my publisher. That's where I publish everything. Most comic shops should have the books, and if they don't, I'm sure you can bribe them into ordering them from me. But yeah, superherocomics.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Matt. And IC3, March 15th. I'll see you there.